Hey everyone, and thanks for checking out this video. Today we're going to be building an ancient Egyptian bathhouse and discussing this ballad little baby queen known as Arsinoe IV of Egypt. So first of all, a little background information about this build. This was made for the Egyptian Oasis collab that was hosted by ErynWithaY and simpleetierra. Both of them are just super lovely. They both have channels that I'm going to link above. And all the builds for this collab were made without custom content. They were assembled into a save file, and you can find that if you check out Erin's information. She's even got a video about it, which I recommend. If you check the description, I'm also going to link all the creators that collaborated to turn Oasis Springs into quote-unquote ancient Egypt. That quote-unquote there is because, of course, we were all limited by the fact that The Sims 4 is not meant to be played in an ancient way or even a historical way, much to my chagrin. So of course the lots are going to have appliances and they're not going to be super realistic or historically accurate. I did do some research on ancient Egyptian architecture for this collab, but the time period that we think of as ancient Egyptian is thousands of years, and it's a complex, it's a rich history, and I'm not gonna even dare to try to summarize it because frankly this is not my area of expertise. My area of expertise is actually nothing. I'm not an expert at anything, and I should not be a citation on any of your research papers. So that being said, there's a couple of architectural elements that can be summarized as ancient Egyptian. And I would say that those are decorative columns, buildings that have been made out of mud brick and limestone, flat roofs, and some interesting geometric shapes like trapezoids and obelisks, and also like art and hieroglyphics that are painted onto the walls, carved into the walls, and decorative ceramics. So I think that actually ancient Egyptian buildings, we think of them as being basically like brown sand colored, but the ancient world was a lot more colorful than we give it credit for, and I think this is particularly true in ancient Egyptian buildings, just through the paintings and the ceramics. So those are the elements that I tried to mostly incorporate into the bathhouse, which by the way is functional. It works as an onsen. It's on my gallery. It's called the Ancient Egyptian Bathhouse, so you can find it there if you're interested in it. Do use move objects on. So yeah, with the game, a lot of this is not super possible. I mean, it's kind of possible, but it's not like we don't have the ancient Egyptian objects, so I had to kind of work around that, and all of the other collaborators would have had to have done the same thing, so it's not going to be very historically accurate. For me, the most recognizable features, these are the ones that I wanted my build to focus on. Those would be the art, basically the hieroglyphics and the tile work. And the only way that I was able to replicate this is because of the wonderful creators on the gallery who, upload the CC-free gallery art. And they are all tagged on this build, the creators that I used, so check that out. Find these people. Lots of good stuff for ancient Egyptian builds. So thanks to all them for making it, and to anybody else who makes gallery art, actually, because like it's vital. So yeah, so art, which I got from the gallery, it's not going to be tagged as CC, so you can still download this. And also the other important feature that I wanted to bring into this build were columns. So I played around with some of the columns in the game before deciding that I just had to make my own columns. So to do this, I also used two mods, and these were Better Build By and Tool, which are both by the amazing Twisted Mexi. So with Better Build By, you're able to look more easily through the debug and live edit objects and define what you want. So I did that to find what I wanted to use in my columns. And I used part of an arch from the Star Wars pack, a base from Jungle Adventures, a bird feeder to be the capital of the column, and that was just from the debug catalog. I don't know what pack. And then I sized them up around a candle so I could retain that basic rounded shape. And then I saved the column as a room so I could just place it over and over again. That was my technique there. Now I didn't have as much time to work on this build as I actually wanted, so I was working on this build and I had to leave the state and my beloved computer because my dad actually had a heart attack, and so I left to go help him and my mom. So I was gone for 3.5 weeks, so that's why this video is late to the collab. and why. I mean, I could have put more detail. I wish I had more time to have put detail into this, but I just like did it really fast and uploaded it. And also, my parents are fine. Thanks for asking. I know you're wondering. They're recovering. So now let's go into the history part of this build. So this is the fun part, okay? This is the story of Arsinoe IV of Egypt. So maybe you've heard of a little queen whose name was Cleopatra. Have you heard of her? Yeah, obviously you have. But did you know that Cleopatra was actually very embarrassingly dethroned by her little sister, who was somewhere between the age of like 12 to 15 at the time? So that's right. I am going to talk about a little case of very intense historical sibling rivalry. So here's some background. Both Cleopatra and Arsinoe were children of Ptolemy VII. It's got a P at the front of it, so I keep wanting to say Ptolemy, but that is obviously incorrect. Anyways, they were both children of Ptolemy VII, and look, I'm gonna be like straight with you. The family tree is more messed up than anything I have ever done in The Sims myself, and that is including the things that I have made Don Lothario do, and that is because the Egyptian rulers believed that it was like totes fine to marry your brother or your sister cousin aunt or whatever to keep the bloodline pure, which is gross on a lot of levels. So we're just gonna gloss right over there and keep going into the history. So Cleopatra had married, we think, her brother Ptolemy VIII, and they were ruling Egypt for a while, pretending things were fine, but actually things weren't fine. Number one, because they were siblings, but number two, because things were a little bit turbulent. There had been some major drama with the Romans. There were Romans causing trouble all over the place. There had been a drought, the Nile flooding, something didn't flood right. There was some famine, which, you know, follows the drought because water ain't right, crops ain't right, and you can quote me on that. That is farmer's wisdom. Anyways, there's also like a debt problem. Cleopatra and her brother were in debt because their dad had spent a lot of money. I don't know that much about it. Anyways, Cleopatra eventually was like, you know what, brother husband, I am the better ruler here. I'm gonna take over. She sidelined him. And this is when her little sis Arsinoe saw an awesome opportunity to get a little taste of power for herself. She was like, yo, tired of being just a princess, I want to be a queen. So she went over to her brother and she was like, hey, what if Cleopatra wasn't the queen and it was me, and I'll support you, and she doesn't get to sideline you anymore, and we are going to go to war with her? And her brother was like, yeah, let's do this thing. So they hooked up, they started a war, two rulers fighting against each other, Ptolemy and Arsinoe versus Cleopatra, and Arsinoe was like, yo, what's up, I'm the queen. Julius Caesar happened to be in Alexandria at this time doing who knows what, probably, you know, protecting some Roman interests in Egypt or being in some war. I don't know, I'm not an expert. So Cleopatra decided to get Caesar on her side. She went over to his ancient Egyptian hotel room and she seduced him real hard because she heard that he liked haughty ruling ladies, and he did, so it worked in her favor. He declared that she got to be the ruler again, she should join up with Ptolemy, whatever. And Arsinoe was like, no, I'm the queen now. So she escaped from Alexandria with her eunuch tutor, Ganymedes? Yeah. And these two crazy kids, because again, Arsinoe was a teenager, like maybe like 15, stole control of the Egyptian army. Arsinoe executed a general, and she put Ganymedes in the #1 general spot because like he was her ride or die. And they managed to fight pretty well against the Romans and got Caesar trapped in a section of Alexandria. And they were like, hey Caesar, come out or we're going to poison the water by dumping salt water into it. And he didn't, so they did. And then Caesar was like, we got to get out of here. So he made this final attempt. He tried to seize control of the harbor by getting control of the lighthouse at Alexandria, but Arsinoe had him outnumbered. You know, she was just too good at that army stuff, so he had to give up. He threw off his cloak and his armor, and he just had to like jump out, literally had to jump out to the sea and swim to the safety of his ships to get away from this little girl. And so there's a sea battle. There's some more fighting between Arsinoe and Caesar's forces. Things were okay, but then the people of Alexandria were like sick of it. They were like, no, not in my backyard, man. They were tired of Arsinoe and Ganymedes like wrecking the place. So they turned on them and they asked Caesar to like exchange hostages. Basically, they'd give Caesar Arsinoe, could he please return Ptolemy to them and like just get rid of his annoying little sister. So they did, and Ptolemy was king again, and Arsinoe was taken prisoner by Caesar. He took her to Rome. He hated her guts, and he was like, hey, let's strangle her. Let's strangle her to death in the Colosseum. And the people were like, what? No, I know we normally strangle people and worse in the Colosseum, but like, she's just a high schooler, dude. You gotta chill out. So instead of being strangled to death, she was sent to serve in the temple of Artemis, and she got to hang out there for a while, you know, doing her thing for the goddess or whatever. But a few years later, Caesar got assassinated, and it turns out that the only thing that was preventing Cleopatra from doing her own assassination of Arsinoe was that she was like afraid of the repercussions. But then Mark Antony got in control, and he was like, Cleopatra, what have you been doing? Like, come explain yourself. And she did, but she did it seductively. And Mark Antony was like, what, girl, you can do whatever you want, I don't care, you are bae. And so Cleopatra was like, I want to murder my sister. And he was like, okay, girl, you do you. And so she had Arsinoe murdered at the temple, fully assassinated. Don't know exactly how old she was, because they don't know exactly when she was born, but she was young. She was probably in her mid-20s when she died. So that is the story of the rarely talked about Egyptian queen Arsinoe IV. There's a very funny drunk history video covering this, and it has Aubrey Plaza in it playing Cleopatra, and I recommend it. It's super funny. Please let me know what you think about this story in the comments below. Check out the other simmers involved in this collab, and if you're interested in the build itself, again, you can find it on the gallery as Ancient Egyptian Bathhouse. My name on there is beccatownsims, and you can also find me on Instagram, Twitter, Twitch, all under the same name. If you liked watching this video and you would like to see more content by me, that's right, me, beccatownsims, please subscribe to my channel. I am getting close to 1,000 subs, and subs like sandwiches, and I would love to hit that soon, so hit that. I would love to get 1,000 subscribers soon, so please subscribe if you haven't already. I appreciate that. I appreciate your support, and I hope you have a lovely day.